Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your mediation. My name is Nancy and I will be your mediator today. How about if we start by going around the table and each of you introduce yourselves and let me know how you would like to be addressed today.
I'm Hillary Lentz, and I am the representative for Computec.
Okay.
My name is Rebecca St. George. I'm the president of Tri-State Bank, which is a large banking industry in the Midwest here.
Okay. All right, thank you both. I am now going to make what mediators call an opening statement. My opening statement will tell you about your rights and entitlements, what to expect, and what will occur here in this your mediation. After I'm finished with my opening statement, I'll ask each of you to make an uninterrupted opening statement, letting me know what you think I need to know to bring me up to speed on your case so I can be effective as possible in helping you with the mediation. I assure you your opening statement will be uninterrupted. However, I will be taking notes during your speech to make sure that my notes are accurate. I might need to ask a couple of follow-up questions. If there's anything you'd like to say during the other party's opening statement, I request you take notes, and that way when I get back to you, you'll have everything you want me to know ready to share. I'd like to take this opportunity to commend you both for agreeing to participate in mediation. This is a proven, successful process, and I assume by virtue of your being here today, you're committed to make this system work and are attempting to reach a resolution of your dispute. So, what is mediation and what is a mediator? Mediation is simply a negotiation with the assistance of a neutral third party, the mediator. I am here to help you negotiate. I have no authority to make you do anything. This is a voluntary process. If you choose to leave the mediation at any time because the process isn't meeting your needs, you're free to do that. However, if either of you feel that way, I would hope that you would talk to me first, as I might have some inside information that would allow you to make a more well-rounded decision. You are entitled to a neutral in this process. I don't know either of you. Do either of you know me from anywhere? Okay. As a mediator, I cannot be compelled to come into court and testify as to any part of this mediation except as to whether we settled or did not settle. That's the only disclosure I will make. And as far as I'm concerned, the reasons you're here, any so-called fault or other matters are the subject of absolute privilege. All that I hear in this mediation I will keep confidential. I will not share it with anyone. I ask both of you to do the same. Most states consider mediation similar to settlement negotiations and thus protecting and holding anything said inadmissible in court. However, there are some exceptions. I cannot keep confidential and must reveal any threat of violence, harm, or worse to anyone, and past or present abuse of any kind or threat of future abuse. I'd just like to briefly describe the process we'll be going through today. We're currently together in a joint session. We can remain in joint session until all of our statements are presented. When I finish, again, you'll each have the opportunity to make an opening statement. If you can just let me know maybe the history of the dispute, resolution that you think is appropriate in the case, and anything you want to add to shed light on your position. And after each of you makes an opening statement, we'll remain in joint session if you're okay with that. Otherwise, we can have a caucus. A caucus is simply a private meeting. Any one of us can call a caucus. If you wish to speak to me privately, or if I wish to speak to either of you privately, we can call a caucus. And I'll just be asking questions of you to make sure that I understand and have all the information I need. If I meet with one party in a caucus, I will then meet with the other party in a caucus as well. And at the conclusion of each of those, I'll ask if there's anything you wish for me to hold confidential. And whatever you request I keep in confidence, I will do. And there may be a disparity of time in the caucuses, and that's not me getting favor with either one party over the other. The reason is simply I may have more questions for one side. Please be aware negotiating is a give and take process. I request that you both be flexible and try to keep a positive attitude, and hopefully we can find common ground and reach an agreement. If an agreement is reached here today, settling some or all of the issues, it will be written up, and if it reflects your understanding, I'll ask both of you to sign it, and I'll keep the original and make copies and give to each of you. Thank you for listening to my opening statement. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
No.
All right. May I have your opening statement? Who would like to go first?
I will.
Okay.
I am the representative for Computec. It is an international computer consulting firm, and our home offices are in Spain. Our operation is to organize and computerize data from our clients. So in this case, we were hired by Tri-State to computerize and systematize their data, which included account management, loan processing, billing, investment activity, payroll. It was essentially all computer-related activity with the bank. We have a contract. We will basically it said that we would receive the contract would last for 10 years.
Excuse me.
And Tri-State agreed to pay us consulting and administration fees of over $1 million per year for this 10-year contract term. And after the first year, we sent Tri-State a bill for approximately $30,000 US in addition to that $1 million fee that we just talked about. The contract said that it would be over $1 million US, and so we submitted that portion. That bill for $30,000 represented the costs incurred by our staff in attending seminars and meetings related to the installation of computer technology in banks, and for costs incurred while meeting with various outside consultants on aspects of the contract with Tri-State. So our in-house attorneys and our other attorneys and all of that to make sure that the contract was solid. The important thing to stress is that universally this type of charge for training and the legal work and meetings and all of those things is something that is reimbursed by the purchaser of the consulting service, and that's really where we are. We sent Tri-State a bill, and they sent us a letter back saying that they refused to reimburse Computec for us for those sorts of expenses, the training expenses, and we promptly responded and expressed that it is a universal policy that the purchaser reimburses the consulting firm for those costs. Under Spanish law, and as I said, our offices are in Spain, reasonable expenses directly related to the performance of a professional service contract, which in this case would be the computer consultation and then the services, are recoverable as an implied term of the contract if it is the industry practice, and it is the industry practice. I have been told by attorneys that in most states in the United States there's a similar legal provision, and we want that to be honored, and have receive our 1 million, at a minimum $1 million that we were supposed to receive, and then the 30,000, which would be lumped into that over $1 million cost. And we will continue to, to seek this reimbursement, and I think that's where we are.
And have you done a full year of business with Tri-State
Yes.
yet? And did they incur $1 million?
Well,
That's not in dispute.
right. The $1 million.
I'm just
isn't in
wondering if,
dispute.
right, and did they pay you the $1 million for the first year?
Yes.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the contract is for over $1 million for every year, and then so we have the 1 million, but that over
Right.
part.
I just wanted to make sure that
Sure.
that part had been
No, you're
held
asked.
to.
May I
Yes.
respond to that? You're asking for $30,000 above the fee that we agreed to in the contract.
Yes. Well, the contract said specifically that Tri-State agrees to pay Computec a consulting and administration fee of over $1 million a year. So right now we only have the 1 million, and then we have the
No, over $1 million a year. It's fairly specific. It's a little over $1 million, and you've given us a bill for $30,000 in addition to the fee that we agreed to.
right. The fee
Right.
is for over $1 million though, and we've only received $1 million.
No. You're asking for separate from the contract, in addition to what we contracted, is what this $30,000 is about.
Well, I feel like that this already isn't going to work.
Okay, well, let's hear Rebecca's opening statement. Let's hear what.
Okay. One thing I'd like to say going into it is, okay, contract aside, right? I would like to see us figure out a way to continue to work together. The work that you're doing is good work. We're happy with your work. So that's not that issue.
Okay.
The $1 million plus that's spelled out in our contract, which is, it's a fairly specific, it's a good contract. We both had our attorneys look at it. Happy with the contract. It kind of came out of the blue when you presented us with a bill for another $30,000 for training. You know, we contracted with you to organize our computers. We contracted with you to take care of our data processing, make it so that it works better, which you're doing. We did not contract with you to pay you to take your staff on a vacation, call it training, and then pay us extra. And so that's not a reasonable fee. Now you say that it's industry standard to do that. I don't believe that may be true in Spain. I don't know. I believe this is the first contract you've had in this country. This is not, I mean, we do have provisions that say, yes, if something is industry practice, we'll pay above and beyond, but we don't pay our employees to go to this kind of training. We don't put that out there. This is not something we do here. And so particularly doing it and then coming and saying, oh, by the way, here's a bill, is pretty unreasonable. And so you get a very fair sum, as it is.
I need to respond to what she said about taking our employees on a vacation. The training to have our employees be as knowledgeable as possible about how to help run a bank system is best taught by a particular individual who is very famous and is very wealthy and has a lot of special requirements for running his seminars, and part of that is that he owns a yacht and he will only train on that yacht, and that might seem extravagant, but he is the best consultant in the world, and he will only teach there. We were not the only company that was there participating in the training. It was undeniably a nice break from having to be confined to a hotel conference room the entire time, but we were, in fact, in a conference room. It just happened to be on a yacht, and at night, instead of going to the restaurant inside the hotel and going to bars or whatever in the town, we were just there on the yacht, and we got to relax in the swimming pool and have our meals there. It is essentially the same as going to a conference somewhere else in any location. It was just that it happened to be on a boat instead of on land.
So industry standard in Spain is a yacht trip on the Mediterranean for training?
Okay, if I can ask one follow-up
Sure.
question of you then. So if you didn't get this training, would you have been able to set up their system?
No, it's a special, banking is a specialized system in and of itself. And as she pointed out, this is our first contract in the U.S. I'm confident that there are no better companies, and I am confident that our company is the best and that our employees are the best and that they have an incredible capacity to learn and to adapt, but they had to learn how to work a banking system in the United States that would be working internationally, and the staff they were trained by the best consultant that that's just an acknowledged fact in our industry, and they were very fortunate to be able to get that training, and then they used that training to set up the system that Tri-State seems to be so pleased with.
Okay, and then a question for you. So you've already received, the $1 million worth of bills. Were those itemized? I mean, did you receive $1 million worth of services?
My understanding of our $1 million+ the more than $1 million, is that that's been taken care of. That's been paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's been encompassed. We didn't
Yes.
say, we're only going to go up to $1 million at the end. We followed the contract of what we've paid them for the services, and we are happy with those services. But that was the agreement. We paid for what we agreed on. We didn't agree on a $30,000 bill to go onto a yacht in the Mediterranean. I hear you that apparently the trainer you chose was very good. And maybe not. I don't know much about it other than that we don't do that. That's sort of our standard practice. We don't do that. And you didn't even talk to us. I mean, you're saying yourself you needed to learn how to set up this computer system in the U.S. So why are you paying $30,000 to hang out on a yacht in the Mediterranean with a Spanish guy, right? So there are other ways you could have gotten training, and we didn't contract for 10 years with you to train you. We contracted with you to take care of our computers.
Well, what we have been told by our attorneys, both in Spain and the United States, is that there are legal provisions in the United States for this reimbursement, but that it really isn't established if the purchaser of the services must they be aware of the industry standard. So the standard exists, and it's the purchaser's responsibility to determine, what the industry standards are for the particular service that they are seeking contracting. And
You're confusing me. Our standard right here in the Twin Cities, we've never paid for this kind of thing. We've never paid for this kind of thing unless it's a part of the contract. Not an implied part, but that it's stated. This is a huge contract. We state what's in there. And if you want to go that much beyond what the contract is, you come back and you renegotiate. You don't just present somebody with a bill after taking this. I mean, I would assume that you didn't talk to me about it beforehand because you knew that I might look askance at the idea that that's how you need to do the training. And so, sit now, pray for
No.
forgiveness later. I can't run a business that way.
Not at all. Our attorneys have said explicitly that there is this standard and that but that in the United States, while it's clear in other countries that in the United States there is some indecision about whether or not the purchaser must be aware of the standards. So it's usually the burden lies with the purchaser to determine
Are you
what
telling
the
me the
industry
purchaser?
standards are. Yes.
Okay, so you purchased this training and now you're wanting me to pay for it.
Okay, I think at this point I'd like to have a caucus just to kind of get a feel for each of your positions separately. So if that would be okay, who would like to step up first?
You can go ahead. I'll stay here.
Okay, I understand 30,000 is quite a bit of money, and if it wasn't spelled out explicitly,
It
I
wasn't
can-
even hinted at. It's just nowhere in the contract.
My question is if you're willing to pay any portion of it, or if you're opposed to the entire fee.
I'm opposed to the entire fee. I also don't want to lose their business. I mean, they have our
Yeah, but
business.
9-year relationship
To look
left.
forward
Yep,
to,
right.
yeah. And so we've got to do something. I'm quite offended that they would do this. I'm assuming there may be some cultural miscommunication, and laws are different, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not completely unbending, but yeah, I'm opposed to paying any of it. I think it's egregious that they would do something like that, where they did it, how they did it, and then later come back with, oh, by the way, we need you to pay for this. We don't pay for our own employees to get that kind of training, to get any kind of training. This is not what we do. And so to have our contractor step outside of the contract and do that is just kind of crazy. So that said, I guess the training probably did help them. Excuse me. And I might be willing to pay for part of it, but not for the part that includes the yacht and the Mediterranean and the swimming pool and all that kind of stuff, maybe for part of it.
So maybe if we could find out how much a training would have cost of what you had more in mind, how much a comparable training to what you're thinking would have cost. Maybe that's a bill you're more willing to pay.
Perhaps. I mean, and I'm really just not happy with her sense of entitlement for like, well, we did this, and now you have to pay for it. You can't run a business that way. And I need to know that she's not going to do it again. I'm a little bit afraid that if I pay anything, she's going to come back and say, well, this is what we do. We set precedent.
Right. So a certainty that this is a one-time fee.
Yeah. And if they need something further, that will come back to the table and renegotiate that. She doesn't get to just go outside of the contract and then assume that I'm going to go along with that.
Is it a question of the payment up front? What if it was like, $3,000 a year tacked on,
Oh,
to
it's
cover
not
the
that I can't.
30,000.
It's not that I can't afford it.
Okay,
That's not the issue.
to the principle of it.
It's I don't pay for those things. Like I said, my own employees don't get that. If I want to go on a yacht or even to a training, I pay for it myself.
To play devil's advocate, though, I'm sure obviously, like you've said, this is a huge contract. You know, you're talking in excess of $10 million.
Mhm.
Obviously, you'd want them to get training from the best possible.
I don't need that. She needs to get the best one in the world.
Right.
I mean, it's computing. There's people all over the world who do good banking computing.
Right.
So
You want your records in somebody that's competent, certainly.
and
your
they're
banking
competent.
records.
Sure, they're competent. That's fantastic. But I don't know that they needed to go to that guy. And frankly, if they really did, and it needed to be that much money, they needed to come to me first and not just expect me to pay for it. It's just not acceptable. So that said, like I said, I would be willing to, if we could figure out what would have been a reasonable fee and have some sort of assurance that she's just not going to do that again, I might be able to pay some, not
Okay.
$30,000 though.
Okay.
All right.
And before we switch sides here, is there anything that we've talked about that you would like me to keep confidential?
I think all of it. I mean, no, I don't know that I've said much that I haven't already said. Other than that, I guess I'd be willing to pay for part of it, but not much. So I guess, yeah, tell her whatever you need to.
Okay.
I'm an open book.
All right.
All right. Do you want me to go get her?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank
All
you.
right. I will do that. I'll go all the way around this way. And then I'm thinking that thing can record you sitting there. It'll be great.
Okay.
Don't.
Yes, I apologize for the setup of the room. We're having some construction.
It's for the betterment of, everyone.
Yes. Welcome back. So it's all about the $30,000. Is your firm willing to move it all on that if we were to get Rebecca to agree to pay to part of the bill, or do you need the full payment?
We would be willing to negotiate on that because we want the contract to continue.
Okay. Do you know if you would have done a training like the standard way that she's talking about? You know, like you go to a hotel and in the conference room. Do you have any idea how much a training like that would have cost?
It would probably actually be around the same because we would be having to pay for individual hotel rooms and food and all of that, those sorts of costs, and that was the same. We were given lodging and food, and then you have to pay the person who trains you. And they really vary, and it's based on lots of different things. A lot of it can even be the time of year because it's more expensive to stay in a hotel around holidays or things like that. So, they really can vary anywhere between, I would say, plus or minus maybe 10,000 on each end.
Okay. And then I played devil's advocate a little bit with Rebecca, so to play devil's advocate with you, certainly, you've gotten this edge now, and you could certainly present yourself as having this industry knowledge and maybe gain banking contracts now that you've had this training. So you would be willing to reduce it somewhat so that they don't shoulder maybe the whole burden, in that you would have access to other contracts through the training.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then just a couple more things. I guess talking with Rebecca, she wants to make sure that, you have 9 years of a contract left, and she just wants to see if there's any way she can get some sort of assurance that this won't happen again, that if you if your firm's incurring some sort of fee that will be over and above this, that you would communicate with them to maybe get an okay or give them a heads up. Would that be something
Sure.
that you could discuss with her?
Yes, but I will say that I think it's reasonable, every few years to not attend an initial training like what we had to do here, but at least to, um, have a catch up over what has changed in the past few years, and those aren't usually very costly or sometimes only a day or two as opposed to a week. And that would just be to learn about new technologies that are being used and new systems um, and all of that. And we would at a maximum only have to do that maybe twice, but more likely just once, I would think.
Okay. But you would be open to discussing if there were major expenses coming up that you would give them a heads up.
Yes.
Okay, and then I guess the final thing, and she didn't mention this, but it just sounds like they were kind of blindsided by the $30,000 invoice. And so I was just wondering if you would be willing not to apologize for incurring the fee, but just to maybe say that you're sorry that you didn't give them the heads up of that. It's just kind of the manner of it just kind of seemed in their face.
Well, the contract specifically said that the fee would be over $1 million. And we have never worked on anything, and I have never known anyone in this industry who was not reimbursed for their training costs. That's just the way that it works. And they have only paid $1 million in a contract that clearly says over $1 million. So they were on notice that there would probably be other charges since it said in our contract over $1 million. It didn't say $1 million flat. It didn't say $1,010,000. It said over $1 million, and it's industry practice both here and in Spain to reimburse those costs. And I just don't feel comfortable having to apologize for something that is the standard practice. I just don't know.
Okay. I just thought, maybe if we've just phrased it as, just the manner in which they received the bill, just because I think it'd go a long ways with her agreeing to, pay for a portion of the invoice. I just thought I'd throw it out there because she's mentioned a couple of times the way that it was presented threw them off guard, and I mean $1 million a year is a lot of money, and so I just wanted to throw it out there. You certainly don't need to apologize.
Yeah, I don't think that that's something that my company should have to do, because it was the bank's responsibility to really understand the industry that they were contracting with, and it's not something that you ever even have to talk about in Spain and in other European countries. And our attorneys advised us that that was the practice here as well. I'm willing to say that in the future that we will, if anything arises, which I don't know that it will, we will mention it beforehand. But I think that that's really the most that I can do, because I really don't think that we're at fault.
Okay. So I think I'm ready to call Rebecca back in. Before we do that, is there anything that we discussed that you want me to hold as confidential?
No, but I suppose if you want to keep in mind that it would be difficult for my company to take anything less than $20,000 for that reimbursement.
Okay.
Out of the 30.
Okay. Sounds good. Would you be able to wave her back in? Welcome back. All right. I think there's some common ground, and I hope that we can reach an agreement here. I'd like to talk about the future relationship, and we did discuss you would like if a fee arises in the future, like this, a larger invoice, that Computec would discuss it with you beforehand, or at least give you a heads up.
Well, I think discuss it before moving forward on anything.
Okay.
Anything outside of the contract, I think, needs to be discussed first.
And we talked about that, and would Computec be willing to make that commitment to Tri-State Bank?
Yes.
Tri-State Bank, sorry.
We're
Sorry
not
about
trying.
Right.
Well,
Sorry about that.
some of our employees are, but
That's very accepting of you.
well, we're a good place to work.
So you would be willing to make those assurances. So hopefully that makes you feel better that in the future, since there's 9 years left on the contract, that this sort of situation wouldn't come up again with the fee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, so we have that. And then I know we talked about the $30,000 and how you didn't feel that you should have to pay that whole amount. Would you be willing to throw out a counteroffer, perhaps?
Perhaps. I think part of that needs to be contingent on, I don't want to pay for the extravagance. Is part of what I'm really opposed to right now. And I know you say you needed the best in the world, and it was only this guy, and it had to be on a yacht. I'm not comfortable with that assessment. It happened though. You got the training. You're doing good work. And so that said, while I don't like how it happened, and I don't know that we'll be able to do this in the future, you probably did get some useful training. Your employees probably did get some useful information. Is there a way to pull apart the bill from the trainer? And, what are the different fees for what?
The only fee that would differ in any way from receiving or going to a conference at a hotel or at a convention center is the cost of the speaker alone. We have a pretty tight budget, I would say, for lodging and food, and so as a general rule, when we send our employees to these types of meetings, we provide their housing and their food, and that is the same thing that we did here. That wasn't any different.
Right, no, but so part of my thing is you're a computer company, right?
Yes.
And you're doing computer work. A lot of that kind of training for, the nuts and bolts of how do we set this up and how do we run it, that can be online training. You don't need to take your employees somewhere else. And on top of that, your company is in a big city. And the idea that you need to bring them somewhere for lodging and for travel and those expenses add up fast.
Well, certainly.
And that's part of the reason that we don't pay for those things for employees.
But we weren't the only company there, and just as with any other organization,
your companies aren't asking me to pay their bill.
but just with any other organization, in the world, they have national conventions and they have conferences that are put on in certain locations, and this was just another one of those things, and it happened to be given by this man who is highly respected specifically in the industry of computerized banking, and this is the one that we chose. We had to pay more for the speaker himself, but with these types of conferences, you don't always have a choice where it is. If it's something that you need, then that's where you go. And we go to these yearly or every few years to a conference, just like a medical association or a bar association, anything like that. And some training can be done online, but there's a lot of training that cannot be done online. Specifically when we're dealing with new technologies and new products and things like that, when you're setting up the system, you have to have this hands-on training that's not available online. So either way, we would have had to go somewhere to get this training or pay to bring someone in, which actually could have been more expensive.
My experience with that kind of thing, when you're looking for training, we're not talking about a conference as sort of a social thing to go and do what you're doing. But for training, you need training, the information. Okay, fine. You bring someone in, you're talking one person and their expenses versus all of the expense of flying your people in, the hotel, the food, all of that. That's the thing that adds up. The training itself, like I said, I'm guessing you could have gotten a lot of it just online, which has an expense. And I'm also guessing you could have brought someone in or found someone in your own community. I'm not denying that this guy was good. What I am not denying, but what I'm taking issue with is the idea that it had to be that guy at that place at that time. That's the issue. And so I think we can come to some sort of an agreement if we can look at what would have been a more reasonable way of getting your needs met versus doing this. And, had you come to me in advance, we could have talked through some of that, but you didn't. Which makes it hard for me to say, well, okay, since you made that decision unilaterally without even checking. But like I said, I'm willing to pay some. I just think we need to come to an understanding of what else could have been possible that we might be willing to pay for.
Well, that was the training for that particular field for the year, and that's what we did. A lot of speakers, they don't want to go to multiple events. They just want to do one event. That's why you have conferences and you go to these types of things, because the speakers won't really make themselves readily available. I suppose that we could have tried harder to find somebody else, but we did our best, and we...
Did you even look at anyone else?
Well, surely, but it's such a narrow field, and that was...
Banking?
The computerized banking, specifically international computerized banking, is
narrow.
Is narrow.
So you've made... you told me that this certainly is not an annual expense by any means.
No.
She has said that this probably in your 10-year contract, this is the only time they'll need training.
Probably.
If they need further training, it would be minor.
Like maintenance, just to understand the upgrades and the new technology, and some of that at that point might be available online.
Not to the level that happened before.
And it's minimal.
And going forward, she would discuss that with your company beforehand. So, we can admit that this occurrence happened. It won't happen again in the future. So you won't be getting another $30,000 bill for
especially when I
training.
didn't get to go on the yacht. Just saying.
Right.
I'm the president of a bank. I like me some yachts.
So you have said that you would be willing to pay a portion of it. Would you be willing to share how much?
Well, I mean, I suppose. How many employees do you have? Do you know how many people were there ultimately? Okay. I think I'd be willing to pay $5,000 to, reimburse for the training itself. You know,
The training itself, not the speaker. The speaker's fee was 10.
the speaker's fee was 10,
Yes.
and he's the most expensive in the world.
He's the best in the world. There are people that charge more.
Are there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But if we're
I could pay for his fee. I'll pay the $10,000 for his fee. I'm willing to do that.
Now, if this conference had taken place, I mean, certainly there would have been the hotel costs and the food and.
Not necessarily. Not if it's in your town. If people are going from their office, down the street, you don't have to pay for their hotels. You don't have to pay for their meals. This is very specific to traveling. I don't think computer technology is fairly universal at this point in time. I don't know that people need to travel to learn how to use a computer, especially when you're already a computer company. So
it's not learning how to use a computer. It's learning how to install and maintain it. This is a complicated process, and it's a complicated system, which is why you hired us
exactly
to do it.
Which is why we hired you, and we're paying you $1 million a year to do it, because it's complicated, because that's what you sold us. You sold us that you could do that. I am willing to go above. I'm willing to pay you $10,000 for an expensive trainer. I'll do that. I'll meet you with that. Like I said, I'm not happy about it, and I'm not happy about how it happened, but I'm willing to do that because I do value your work. I value your company, and I value what you bring to us. But I think there's a piece of what we give to you. I mean, we are giving you your reputation coming into this country, and I'm guessing you'd like to expand here, is a blank slate until you come to us, right? You don't want to come in. We're a big bank. We are the biggest bank in the Midwest. I like your work, and I would like you to be able to expand what you're doing because I think you do good work. But,
So the speaker's fee was 10, and the other fees were 20,000. Is there any chance you'd be willing to just split that fee 50-50 and
You mean pay 15?
20?
Oh, you want me to pay 20?
Well, 10 for the speaker's fee, and then you just split the rest of the fee.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. That's not even on the table.
Okay. Do we have any other suggestions?
It will be hard for the company at this point, but
I'd be,
I think we could. I think that the company right now could bear the burden of 15,000, but
done. Let's do it. Let's just split it down the middle. As long as you promise, we have it in writing that you won't do this again. I mean, we're giving you $1 million a year. It's
And
not.
when you say do this again, you mean the training, larger invoice amount?
I mean an invoice amount outside of the 4 quarters of our contract without discussing it first.
But what are the 4 corners of the contract when it says that we will be paid over $1 million a year?
We paid you over $1 million.
You paid us $1 million.
I don't have a copy of the contract right here because it's many, many pages long. It's very, very clear. Our attorneys were very careful. This is what we're paying for. There is nothing in there that talks about training or sending you to conferences. There's nothing in there about that. I would like to say within the contract, these are the services you're providing.
But I
this
think
is
that
what
that's
we're paying
clearly
for.
An issue because our contract was for consulting and administration, and training is part of administration.
Well, it isn't the way we look at it. And so what I'm saying is, if it is, that's fine. But I think because it's not in the contract, if you're doing more training, I mean, this is just a moving forward. If you're going to do more, let's talk. Let's talk about how much it needs to cost. Let's talk about what you need it for. But don't just do it and then come back and give me a bill above and beyond what we contracted for.
I'm still.
Could we maybe meet, have the attorneys look again at the contract and maybe if an addendum needs to be made regarding what exactly consulting services does not include?
I think that should happen because I'm not happy with this because in the contract it says that we would be paid over $1 million, not
We paid you more than $1 million.
all that we have received is a flat $1 million according to my information.
According to my information, is that we're paying you as we go, and it's not an exact thing. I don't.
Surely it's not exact, but it says a fee of over $1 million a year.
Okay, so regardless of that, I would like us to resolve this. Regardless of whether or not I don't, do you have the receipts for what we've paid you so far right now?
Not
On
with
you?
me.
Exactly. So right now, what we're saying is we don't agree. We don't agree. I don't think we're gonna agree about whether there's an implied need for us to pay for this. I am agreeing to pay for half of what you already did.
Okay.
I'm agreeing to pay for that. And I want to keep working with you and move forward. I don't want to have this kind of thing happen again where you think one thing and I think another. I wonder, part of it might be you're used to doing business in Spain. I'm used to doing business here. So let's just make it explicit.
Well, that's why I think that our attorneys should.
Yes, I definitely think that the two of you shouldn't decide anything without your attorneys present.
Right.
Maybe get copies of the contract, go through that again so that you both can be on the same page with that. But what I'm hearing today for a resolution is you'll split the bill down the middle. So Tri-State will pay you, Computec, $15,000 for settlement of that invoice.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, you two will meet at a further time with your attorneys to go over the contract to hammer out exactly what your contract covers and does not cover.
As per training.
Correct.
Well, I think.
Our contract already says what it covers and doesn't cover. And training is not in there. And so we'll have an addendum that talks about.
That further refines it.
I think that there needs to be some discussion about what over $1 million.
Yes, and I think that can also be had with your attorneys to make sure that everyone understands the key terms of the contract. And then also that going forward, if a large invoice is generated such as this, that maybe goes outside of one's understanding of the contract, that it will be communicated to the other party.
Yeah.
Is that what we've come to an agreement on today?
I think so.
All right. And that will resolve this dispute so that we can continue with the relationship going forward.
Yes.
All right. Great. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
For attending mediation today. And what I will do now is I will draft what you guys have agreed upon, and if it meets your understanding, I'll ask both of you to sign it, and then you will each get a copy to take back with you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.